Good evening, everyone. I hope you're all doing well. Before we get started tonight, just a big announcement that we need to make to make everybody aware. This Saturday is our food drive at Casey's food store. Now, the forecast as of right now, I think I checked a while ago, and it's like 50% chance of rain, or it was a little bit higher than that earlier today. It goes back and forth, but rain or shine, we will be at Casey's doing the food drive. We have a tent ready that we're going to be up under. If needed, we can set up under the awning right there at the front door at Casey's. So look for us in both places. But we will be having the food drive this Saturday from 10 o'clock to 2 o'clock. If you volunteered to work that food drive and you do not know what time you're supposed to be there serving, you can contact me, Terry, or Angela. Any one of us will let you know what time you're supposed to be there. And then for everyone else that plans on coming and bringing food, we greatly appreciate it. Also this week, as you see the video circulating announcing the food drive and the announcements and the posts on Facebook, if you can, go ahead and share those, forward those to whoever. We want the word to get out to as many people as possible. This is a huge outreach project that we have going on in our community, and you've heard me talk about it a number of times. It's big because it's not just our church, it's a lot of churches coming together. So I'm hoping that a lot of good stuff comes out of this, a lot of new partnerships, a lot of new things come from this multi-church effort. You stink so bad. Dickie Joe, not Hollis. A lot of good things are going to come from this multi-church effort that hopefully in the future we'll be able to partner up on a lot of new things. But as well, it's simply serving our community. So it's getting the word out that we have a food pantry, that we're hoping to serve our community. So on multiple levels, this is a big thing for our church and for our churches in our community and a lot of different people that are working on this. So any time you can share anything or get the word out there to more people, we want more people to be able to come and help, as well as we want more people to know what we're doing and how we're serving them. So hopefully this brings awareness to that as well. So if you can, go ahead and help us get the word out by that. And then anybody that signed up working that, we appreciate it. If you're just bringing food, we appreciate it. And most importantly, be praying that the right people come by, that we're able to serve the right people, and that people are excited to participate in easy mission project in our own backyard. So we appreciate all the help, all the prayers that we can get on Saturday. That's 10 o'clock to 2 o'clock at Casey's. That's rain or shine. All right, we're going to jump on in this evening, and we've been talking about discipleship. We've been talking about what it is to be a disciple. We first started, of course, talking about what was Jesus' mission. Why did he come? What did he do when he got here? And it's important to look at that so that we understand exactly what we're supposed to be doing, because as disciples of Jesus, we're simply followers. We're simply students to him being our teacher. And so we need to know exactly what he was doing, what his goal was, before we can do the best job that we can do as his disciples. So last week we talked about the fact that he came and died for us, right? He came to this world, first off, and lived in our place. And then he came to this world knowing that he was going to live in our place and then eventually die and suffer in our place. He came completely as our sacrifice, right? And he did that because he loves us, because he wants more for us than what this world has to offer and what this world may give us. And he wanted to give us hope, right? So he did that by coming and living for us and dying for us, and then, of course, defeating death 3 days later and rising again. Now, once we understand that, once we understand why he came and what he did when he came and how big that was and how amazing it was that we didn't deserve it and we didn't earn it, that he gave it to us because he loved us, then we should want to live in response to that. We should want to live in such a way that we live differently than the rest of this world. And we should begin to understand that we should want to sacrifice our life because he gave his life as our sacrifice. So we should be wanting to live a life that pleases him, that gives our life to him, that gives him the honor, that gives him the praise, that glorifies him, that shares his truth and his love with the rest of the world. That should be our goal. So we have to live a sacrificial life in response to his sacrificial death. How often, think about this, how often do you think about death? Because death is something that, whether you like to think of it or not, it's hard not to think about at times, because each and every one of us will die, right? I think the statistic was if 150,000 people die every single day. 150,000 people die every day. 50 million people on average. 50 million people die a year. So death is all around us, right? We've all lost loved ones. We've all lost people close to us. You can turn on the news and hear about people that have passed away. You can read about it in the paper. You can hear about it on the radio. Death is everywhere. And death is eventually going to happen to every single one of us. We're all going to experience death at the end of our life here on this planet, right? So even though it's not fun to think about. We don't like to think about that one day our life here will be over, right? It's not necessarily what we want to be thinking about, but sometimes it's hard not to think about. And we talked about this in 2020 with the pandemic and COVID and all the sickness and all the fear and everything that was going on in our nation. We thought about death a lot, probably a lot more than we usually have. And the disciples in the days of Jesus were very familiar with death, and not only death in this world, but they were told that in order to follow Christ, the cost was death. Death to ourselves, death to the world, to our life as we know it before Christ. In order to follow Christ, in order to truly be a disciple, in order to truly respond to his death, the reason he came, we would have to die not only at the end of this life, but during this life. We would have to see ourselves, our own wants, our own desires, our own needs die as we know them. All right, so if you got your Bible, turn to Luke chapter number 14. We're going to be in verse number 25. So Luke 14, chapter 14, verse number 25. The cost of discipleship. Now great crowds accompanied him, and he turned and said to them, if anyone comes to me and does not hate his own father and mother and wife and children and brothers and sisters, yes, even his own life, he cannot be my disciple. Jesus is very clear in that text. Verse 27, whoever does not bear his own cross and come after me cannot be my disciple. Verse 28, for which of you, desiring to build a tower, does not first sit down and count the cost, whether he has enough to complete it? Otherwise, when he has laid a foundation and is not able to finish it, all who see it begin to mock him, saying, this man began to build and was not able to finish. Or what king, going out to encounter another king in war, will not sit down first and deliberate whether he is able with 10,000 to meet him who comes against him with 20,000? And if not, while the other is yet a great way off, he sends a delegation to ask for terms of peace. So therefore, any of you who does not renounce all that he has cannot be my disciple. Church in 2021, we love numbers. We love numbers. In fact, we love numbers so much that we measure our success as a church, not Live Oak Baptist Church in particular, right? But we all are guilty of this at times. As a pastor, I'm guilty of this, and even though I know this is wrong, we still get into the habit of this, and we still, our human mind kicks in. But as a church as a whole in America, we do a really good job of measuring our success as a church with numbers. How many people are in the congregation? How many people got saved last month? How many people did we baptize? How many kids do we have at Sunday school? How many dollars did we raise in tithes last week? How much money do we have in our mission fund? How many missionaries do we support? Everything that we do, we measure our success with numbers. When I tell someone that I pastor a church, and I always get two responses. One, wow, really? And two, how big's your congregation? They want to know exactly how good of a preacher I am, right? If you're a great preacher, you must have a multi-thousand member church, and you preach at a church of 5 people, you must not be that good. I don't know, but that's always the question that I get. How big's your congregation? We measure our success by numbers, and we have to be careful when we do that, because if we begin to measure our success by numbers, by how many we have in our congregation, or how many we're baptizing, or how many came to Sunday school, or how many were in Bible school, or the amount of dollars we brought in tithes, when we begin to measure our success in those worldly terms, then we'll begin to do things in order to get better numbers. Even if that means watering down the message. Even if that means making the road a little wider. Even if that means making the process a little bit easier. I'm gonna let you in on just a little secret, and this is where a lot of churches get in trouble, and I hope that we as a church never get this, but it's easy to do because our human instincts kick in, and the rest of the world operates this way, so it's easy for us to fall into this routine. But once we begin to water things down so that we see a bigger response and we begin to see bigger numbers, whether that's in individuals or money, when we begin to water those things down and make the path wider and make things easier, we're not actually making the process easier. We're not actually making the path wider. We're actually sending people down the wrong path. That's a very real thing that's going on in America right now. We have a lot of people that are going to church that think they're being led down the path to follow Jesus. And in reality, they're Sunday school teachers, they're church members, they're pastors even, are leading them down the wrong path. The path that doesn't go to Jesus. It's not in my capability to widen a path or to make the process easier. It's not any of our ability to widen a path or make the process easier for anyone to follow Jesus. Look, back in when Jesus was teaching this, he didn't water it down one bit. You will not find a preacher in America right now that will tell someone when they come into their church and they sit down in the pastor's office or they go to the altar to pray and say, hey, I want to give my life to Christ. You will not see one pastor say, well, you have to renounce everything in your life right now. You have to give it all up to follow Jesus. Jesus was very clear what the cost was to follow him. He basically said, you have to die to yourself. You have to give up everything. You have to be able to renounce everything in your life and be willing and able to walk away from it all in order to follow me. In other words, I do not want half-hearted Christians. I do not need half-hearted followers. I do not need half-hearted disciples. I need people that are all in, or I don't need you to follow me. Count the cost. Count the cost. You say, why is that so important? Why, is it not better to have a half-hearted follower than not a follower at all? Not really. Because this world is hard. We are in, I told you this Sunday morning, we are in a spiritual war. And it's ugly. And it's nasty. And it's very hard. And it's very difficult when the rest of the world hates your guts because you're trying to promote love and to promote Jesus. We are going to face opposition from every way we turn. So the last thing we need is someone who decides, hey, this is too tough. I think I need to quit. Because that doesn't only give the other side a victory, it gives them motivation to continue to push on, that they're winning. We need people that are completely sold out. Christ needs followers that no matter what the cost, no matter how big, no matter how expensive, no matter how costing the sacrifice is in their life, they're willing to give it all for Jesus. Half-hearted Christians, half-hearted followers, people that want an easier process, people that want a wider road, they're not going to make a difference in this world for Christ. In fact, they're going to give the world evidence that we're not really who we say we are. And that means Jesus isn't really who he says he was. We don't need to be worried about numbers. We need to be worried about lives. Watering down the gospel doesn't save lives. Making the path wider doesn't save lives. Telling people to count the cost, telling people what it's going to cost them, giving them a heads up, it actually will, in the end, save lives. It'll help someone understand what we're doing here. Because Christ died for us, we're called to die for him. We're called to die to ourselves, our wants, our ambitions, our desires, our want needs. We're to give all that up in order to follow Jesus, because this life, once we begin to follow him, once we make that decision to give him our life, we should give him everything, all of us. All of our efforts, all of our time, all of our money, everything we have should be open to be given to him as a sacrifice, as a payment for what he gave us. Being a disciple isn't easy. It's not something we can just skim through and do half-heartedly and get to the end and say, oh, we did an all right job. You're either all in or you're not. There's no in between. Your pastor, your teachers, your friends, your family, they may water it down for you, but Christ didn't. And in the end, Christ's words are what matters, not your pastors, not your friends, not your moms, not your teachers. And Christ said, count the cost. He said it's going to cost you everything. But the reward for that is so much more than what this world will give you for selling out to it. And that's the only two options. Are you sold out to God, or are you sold out to this world? Let's pray. Father, I want to thank you for allowing us to study your word. God, and we understand that being a disciple is hard. We understand that it costs us everything. But we thank you for the reward that awaits us at the end of this life. We thank you for sending your son to die in our place so that we may have hope beyond this life. God, help us to desire to be disciples. Disciples who've given up everything to follow you in order to save this world around us. Help us to reach those for you. Help us to tell them about your love, about your forgiveness, about your grace. God, I pray that you would help us to have that desire to change the world around us. God, we thank you for every opportunity you've given us to serve. As a church, God, I pray that you continue to open doors for us and help us to go through these doors and to see souls saved for you. God, we're not worried about numbers. We're not worried about statistics. We're worried about real lives. Help us make as big of a difference as we possibly can. Help us to always be your hands and feet and your light in this dark, dark world that we live in. We love you. We thank you for it all. It's in your name I pray. Amen. Well, thank you all for joining me tonight. Remember Saturday, big day. We got a lot going on this weekend. We have our food drive from 10 to 2. We have our community egg hunt at 1 o'clock. You can go to both of those things. They're right down the road. It's a great thing about Cave Spring. Everything's within a mile, right? So you can go by the food drive and then go by the egg hunt or vice versa. The egg hunt starts at 1 o'clock in the park. The egg hunt will actually start at 1, and then they're going to serve hot dogs after that. So make sure you've got your calendar cleared up for this weekend. Of course, Sunday, 11 o'clock, we would love to have you at our church in our sanctuary. Hopefully we'll see all of you there. We still have a few that haven't made it to an in-person service yet. You've been tuning in online and on YouTube. We encourage you to come and check us out if you feel safe doing that. If not, you can tune in right here. Hopefully all of our technology cooperates. Hopefully the preacher can say technology. And so as long as it does, we'll be here on YouTube. But you can always catch us in person at church at 11 o'clock on Sundays. I hope I see you all there. Until then, hope you have a great rest of the week. I love you all very, very much.